This is a special presentation for Night Ride FM.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome everyone here. My name is Dennis G, and I have the utmost pleasure of talking with the Mr. Alan Oakes, also known as Let 'em Riot. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm actually
Good.
kind of struggling. I'm trying to push through this week because I've been doing South Beach. I don't know if you know about the South Beach diet. It's brutal.
I'm vaguely familiar.
So basically, you like bread?
Yeah.
You
No
can't
bread?
have it. Do you like sugar?
Yes.
You can't have it. Beer? Nope. Sorry, you're done.
Wow.
By the time the third day rolls around, I'm just like ready to just like strangle somebody for a piece of bread, and it supposedly gets better, and you supposedly lose weight, but we'll see.
All right, well, I hope it works out.
Yeah. I've done it a few times, and it's good for maybe 20 pounds here and there, but long term it's rough.
I don't know. I need my coffee, and I need sugar in my coffee. So
Oh God.
I don't think it would work out for me too well.
Yeah, sure. They even limit caffeine. It's like, what?
Really?
Yeah.
See, that's not good.
You get one cup of coffee per day, and I'm like, you don't know my life. But anyway, we are not here to talk about coffee or South Beach. We are here to talk about your awesome music that you do. And let me just say right off the bat that I've been a huge fan for really over a year now. I believe maybe I first found out about your music was last year when I was kind of priming up to go to the Neon Retro Fest.
Well, very cool. Well, I'm glad you enjoy the music.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then I just started to dig into your stuff, and I found the album that you released with New Retro Wave, and I was just hooked right from the get-go.
Very cool. I'm flattered. Thank you.
I mean, great stuff. And then, of course, seeing you perform at Neon Retro Fest was just about the icing on the cake.
That was a lot of fun. I had a blast that weekend.
That weekend was really great. I mean, it was kind of like a mecca for synthwave, and that's the really cool thing that I liked about it. With 3 days, that's just insane. You know, so much can happen, and you get to meet so many people, and that's what the cool thing was. You could stay up till 4 a.m. and talk with this one person, and then you can meet a different person at like 7 a.m. for breakfast, and then of course the concerts and the events and all the things there, but it's all the stuff that happened after the showroom cleared out, you know, so to speak.
I was recognizing people from social media. I'm like, hey, I'm friends with that guy. Hey, I'm friends with that guy. I'm like, this is so cool. Just finally getting to, to meet the people that you've been chatting online with for the last few years. It was just a great experience, and I had so much fun.
Yeah, it's definitely one of them things that you're not going to forget. And I really, really hope they do it really big again like that, because I had so much fun meeting everybody. Because, you don't really get a chance to see everybody. Everyone's so spread out. I mean, you're in Southern California, right?
Yes. Just outside of LA.
Okay. I wish we just had like a synthwave state where, maybe you drive an hour, but you get to see everybody and make music.
It's cool. I mean, it is spread out, but it's like a worldwide community, which is awesome. It's like growing up, I've been in local scenes, and it's all kids within your town or your surrounding area. But it's like now with the synthwave community, it's kind of the same thing, but everybody's just spread out around the world.
Yeah, and I guess it's a good thing because you get to get all the different cultural influences, especially with synthwave, with it being such a nostalgic thing. The 80s and the time around that, the retro years, I guess you'd say, they're a little bit different depending on what part of the world you live in. I mean, really with, Russia and, I know people from Italy and Australia, of course. And it's really interesting to see how everybody can experience pretty much the same thing, but it just gets a little bit more of a spin depending on what cultural area they're from, which I find fascinating.
All the cultures are different, but there's that common theme, and
Yeah.
we all come together on that whole just nostalgia
Yep.
aesthetic. Everybody can at least relate on that level. And sure, there's variances between different parts of the world, but everybody can come together on just that one idea, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. And it all really comes down to the music in the end, which is just a beautiful thing. That
Absolutely.
So, speaking of music, how long have you been doing music? I mean, it seems like you definitely have plenty of stuff out on Bandcamp, Spotify. It seems like you've really been
Yeah.
kind of honing your craft for many, many years now.
Yeah, I've been trying to get better every day. Let 'em Riot just had their 10-year anniversary. So
Wow.
I started in the summer of '09 when I released my first track.
No
But then
kidding.
going back before that, I mean, I've been playing music my whole life, started playing guitar around 10 or 11, joined my first band at 15 and was, touring and playing shows all throughout high school. So I've just been pretty much playing music my whole life.
Yeah, it seems to be the thing when I talk to a lot of the artists. It's pretty much in them from the get go, and music's always been with me, and DJing and everything like that. It's really one of the things that I love. It's just a passion, and now I get to talk to awesome people like you and all
Very
the
cool.
other people that spend their time to talk with me about synthwave, which I really do appreciate. It's amazing. It's an amazing
Well, no,
experience.
it's awesome. And I'm so glad that you invited me on the show. So,
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you being here. So let's let's dig into all this good stuff here. Now, you've been doing your stuff since 2009. When did
mhm.
it really kind of hit you as far as the music you're making versus this community that you kind of stepped in? And maybe you do, maybe you don't consider yourself 100% synthwave. A lot of the artists that I do talk to, they say, well, I consider myself a pop artist that falls
Uh-huh.
into that Venn diagram, and I'm sure you might have something similar. But the interesting thing is, everyone kind of falls into that Venn diagram, and it seems like everyone kind of comes at it and realizes they're in this community at all different times. When was that moment,
Right.
that defining moment when you said, wait a minute, I just kind of like fell into this thing called synthwave? Like, where did this come from?
Well, that's exactly how it happened. I mean, it was God, like I said, '09 was releasing stuff, put out an EP and a few singles, in 2010, 2011. And it was around that time where I noticed on YouTube someone was uploading my songs to their channel. I noticed, like, I don't know how I noticed, but I think I was doing like Let 'em Riot searches and stuff like that. And this channel was just posting my music up, and the channel was called New Retrowave. And I was like, "Oh, what is this? This is," I'm like, "Well, they must really like my stuff. Oh, that's cool. Well, hey, somebody's listening. Awesome." And they like it enough to post it on their channel. So, I just wandered over and I was just kind of like, "Wait, what's going on here? This is cool. There's other artists doing the same thing." And, so I did stumble into it. I knew I wanted to do 80s influenced music, electronic music, because I
Mhm.
grew up a fan, just all those 80s bands, those sounds, all the synths, the vintage drum machines. I just really liked that. And I also liked writing pop music.
Mhm.
And so, I was just kind of doing that. But, of course, back then I was taking cues from different artists in the electronic genre, like Cut Copy or Hot Chip, even Empire of the Sun
Oh,
back in
right,
like
right.
'08, like they all had kind of like a retro vibe to it, So I was kind of just going off that and still just like taking inspiration from all the early '80s pop, synth pop stuff, which I was a huge fan of. So when New Retrowave started posting my stuff, then I just opened my world up to this whole new world of artists I didn't even know existed. So it was really, really cool. And I feel
Yeah.
very fortunate, even though, back in those early days, like 2011, 2012, people were really, at least in my opinion, were turned off by vocals.
Mhm.
They weren't as accepting as they are today. with vocals. So it was cool to at least be able to kind of fit in and, find, like, carve out a little piece of a community for the music. Because, whether or not people will say Let 'Em Ride is synthwave, or to me, it's like people can, have whatever opinion they want. But it's
Right.
just, I felt fortunate enough to at least have, just like I said, carve out a little spot for myself, and then, have kind of like a home,
Right. Yeah.
which I think any scene is really what it is. It's a home. It adds context to the music, and you can actually bring people together,
Absolutely.
which is great. So that's why I feel very fortunate that that happened for the music.
Yeah, I mean that is a really, really great answer. Actually, New Retrowave, yeah, they've just been doing it forever, and they are really great. I love Ten over there, and
Yeah.
all the people that are on the label as well. I mean the music is really top quality stuff, and yeah, it's amazing when people are out there sharing your music, and you fall into this community, and everyone can kind of come at it from a different angle and share music.
Right.
And I find so much music from the community itself, which is amazing, because every time I turn around, somebody is saying, "Hey, you got to check out this artist or this song."
Right.
And man, sometimes I just can't keep up.
It's easy to get lost in it, which is cool. But, yeah, 10 has been awesome. And, genuinely say he's been supporting Let 'Em Riot and the music, from the beginning, which is just great. And, he's been supportive this entire time, which is amazing. So
Yeah.
I feel very fortunate.
So I was looking at your Spotify list, when you look up your artist name. Now, a lot of the songs that I really gravitate to are the vocal tracks. But interestingly enough, kind of keying in as to what you had said about vocals, I noticed that your number one track on Spotify is a song called Traces, which I guess came
Yeah.
out in 2015.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's an interesting story. Going back to New Retrowave, he's been putting out compilations, probably since like 2012, 2013. He would write me and say, "Hey, would you like to contribute a song?" And I would just, show him something that didn't really make a release. So I'd go, "Here, what do you think of this?" And he's like, "This is perfect." And so he was planning the first official New Retrowave Records release, which was going to be a compilation called Magnetron. And
Okay.
so he kind of, he wrote me, kind of explained the whole idea. And I said, well, I'd really like to write something specific for this. And he's just like, yeah, go for it. We got time, just do what you want to do, and, hit me up when you're done. So with the whole idea of Magnetron and how 10 described it, I was just kind of like, well, this is great. I can actually, write with a certain idea. Like, it's almost like how someone would score a movie. They write to what's happening on the screen. And so I kind of just thought it would be fun to write to the idea of what Magnetron would be. And
Oh,
so
interesting.
I did that, and 10 ended up loving it, and it made the compilation. So it's completely out of left field, which I like doing every once in a while. I think
Yeah.
it's fun. If you kind of just go outside of, your comfort zone. To me, that's part of being an artist. I think once I get too comfortable with one thing, it's probably time to move on.
Right.
Keeping it fresh is what makes writing music exciting. So that compilation, it was so many great tracks on that record. And I think that the reason why Traces is my most popular or most streamed song is mostly attributed to the fact that Magnetron was very successful and
Hmm.
still is to this day. So I don't really think that Traces really reflects on Let 'Em Ride. It's just more like it was part of a really successful project.
Well, that's cool though. And
Yeah.
interestingly enough, too, no lyrics on that, right?
Yeah. Every once in a while, I'll look at the comments online and people go, "Oh, this sounds nothing like, I really like this song, and I went to go check out his other stuff, and his other stuff sounds nothing like this." And I'm like, "Sorry, didn't mean to disappoint."
No, quite the contrary, at least for me. Like, I'm a big vocal fan, and
Uh-huh.
anything with vocals, I'm all into. And of course,
Cool.
I have been getting into a lot of the instrumentals as well. But to
Yeah.
me, it just adds an entire dimension to the music that you really don't get with just making a song that sounds like a movie soundtrack. But it seems to be, at least for me, that you kind of feel a little bit of the same way when you write your songs. I would say 100% of your songs on your latest album is,
Mhm.
I guess you would say, with vocals, right?
Yeah, I think all of them are really. They're
Yeah.
all yeah, they all have
I don't know
vocals.
why that took so long to get out.
Yeah, it's not like instrumentals are, completely foreign to me. Like going back to the earlier EPs, I think every release has had one or two instrumentals. It's
Mm.
something that I enjoy doing because you get to take a step back and, pay more attention to the music rather than working on the lyrics,
And what key it's in,
editing.
or something you can
Yeah.
sing to, and
Right. Yeah. It's like editing vocals, mixing vocals. I kind of can just sit and just kind of listen, So it's fun, and I try to add instrumentals whenever I can, just to kind of spice it up a little bit.
yeah, keep it fresh. Now, when
Yeah.
you are writing music, though, on the Norm, do you find that you are zoning in on a concept? Maybe the lyrics come first? Is it the music that kind of comes first? Like when you are about to sit down and write a song, what's
Yeah.
your go-to? Like, do you grab your guitar, your piano? Does it just start off with like writing stuff down on a piece of paper, or is it kind of a
Not
combination?
not r it usually starts off with the music. I'll sit and I'm always working on some piece of music, and I've got, on my hard drive, I've got folders and folders filled up with just musical ideas.
Mm.
And so, if I'm working on an idea and vocal melody pops in my head, then I'll just kind of grab my mic, lay it down, and then I'll set it aside. Sometimes a vocal melody pops in, sometimes it doesn't. So that song could either, if a vocal melody doesn't pop in my head, then maybe that song's an instrumental and I'll kind of just play around with that idea. But if, I feel like, no, you know what, this is really missing something, then I'll try to come up with a melody. So it usually goes with music, melody. If I really like it, I'll keep working on it, and then I'll just kind of start coming up with lyrical ideas or subject matter,
Hmm.
and kind of just go from there.
Are you a guitar first, or are you a synthesizer first guy?
I have to say guitar, because I mean, that was my first instrument, and that's what I played all throughout high school and in my 20s,
Right.
so it's like I've spent, years just as a guitar player.
You're not a
You know,
synthwave artist.
I right?
I'm playing the
I know.
purist part.
The jig is up. You got me. So,
I noticed that you did play guitar at the Neon Retro Fest, which I was really impressed that it's tough doing those solo shows because you have to kind of have some sort of live element to it, and you also have to have some
exactly.
sort of backing track because you're one person. So
I
basically, the way you set that up at the event, you had some stems, I guess, and you
mhm.
you did live vocals and you did the guitar work over top of that,
Right.
correct?
Yeah, I've done it so many different ways over the years. I've tried bringing in synthesizers and MIDI controllers. I've also had live drummers with me on stage. I've had live backing musicians who play a keyboard or a synth while I, trigger samples and tweak effects and things like that. So I agree that there has to be some sort of live element. So you're just not pressing play on a playback machine and singing on top of it. I tried maybe playing keys of myself, but it just never felt 100% comfortable with just me with a microphone and my playing a keyboard.
Hmm.
I feel at home behind a guitar. So I just said, you know what, I'm gonna bring the guitar in and just play that live while I, maybe tweak a few effects on the playbacks, on the sampler, and maybe tweak some effects on my vocals. So, I'm doing live things, but the meat and potatoes of the set is me singing with my guitar. And that's how I feel comfortable.
Well, it certainly works.
Cool, thank you.
I tell you what, man, the lyrics that you write, I don't know what it is, but at least it is with me when I'm at like a concert. Like I only seen you play live once, but
Mhm.
even when I'm listening in the car, I mean, you just have some of these lyrics that you just want to scream out, and I don't know,
Oh, man.
but it's fun. Like you have some really good, just drunk in the middle of the night kind of belters that you can kind of let out. Now, some of
Well, I
the
appreciate that, I really do, 'cause the
yeah.
lyrics are probably the hardest thing for me as far as the writing process. I could write a song in a day, and then it takes me a month to finish the lyrics, just because I don't know what it is, you know. I don't know. So I appreciate it when you say you enjoy the lyrics. I
Yeah,
do.
well, you put a lot of time into it, and you could tell by just listening to the lyrics of some of the songs, like your opening of the album, Let's Stay Out. Now, that might be one of my favorite songs just because it kind of pulled me back to a time in my life when I kind of felt a little bit about what is seemingly going on in the song. I
Hmm.
would like to see if you can kind of maybe share some of your inspirations, but what I get out of it, and you can let me know if I'm hitting the mark or like way off
Sure.
base. You know, when I was younger, I had kids like really, really early. So I didn't really get a
Hmm.
chance to go out and, do the crazy things that the 21 kids do and go out and drink, with the red solo cups and all that.
Right. Yeah.
I was at a hospital, delivering babies and whatnot.
Wow.
When I hit 30, it was this weird renaissance that I actually divorced my wife.
Okay.
I was done with that. Moved on, remarried, and happy right now. But basically, in my 30s, I had those moments where it was more like a renaissance. It was like this time that I never had. Like I got a chance to go to these bars and parties and just kind of have that moment that I never had when I was having kids and, doing the daddy route. So it was kind of interesting for me. But of course, I was like 10 years older than, a lot of the people there. But it was interesting to kind of go back into that scene that some people were kind of getting out of. I was actually just kind of dipping my toe into the different bar scenes and going out and just being young, or at least young at
Hmm.
heart. I was 10 years
Well, you
older.
were making up for lost time.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and it was really refreshing. Now, obviously, that's my experience, and again, you really can't get a lot of that unless you pull some of the stuff from the lyrical content and the
right.
delivery and everything like that. But as far as your inspirations for writing the song, what would you say was your main motivational thing behind it?
Oh, it's always rough. But I think for that song, I was just mainly, I was thinking about those moments that we all have. It's just kind of our entire lives are just filled with a bunch of little moments,
Yeah,
and getting a chance to witness a moment and hold on to it, and enjoy it and relish it because those moments are fleeting. And so, and that's kind of, where I said, let's stay out. Let's not let go of tonight, of this moment, enjoy ourselves, because tomorrow, we don't know if we'll ever have another moment like this, so it's kind of just one of those, just appreciating what you have in that moment and making sure to enjoy it as best as you can. So I don't know if that totally kills that song for you now.
no, no, actually,
Yeah.
I was going to kind of lean in that direction as well. The interesting thing about that song with me is I literally wrote like maybe 3 paragraphs of like
Uh-huh.
my interpretation of the song, and it had that in it. It was about relishing the moment, savoring the
Yeah.
night, and I literally wrote on my note sheet, I'm like, you dummy, it's quite literal, you know, because, the song's called Let's Stay Out, so a lot of it just kind of hits it on the head. Like you're out there and you're savoring that moment. So, yeah, a lot of those things did come across as well, too. I think that was my initial reaction to it, was what kind of pulled me in. And sometimes
Hmm.
you might have a different interpretation based on your own experiences, but I can totally get exactly what you were kind of going for with your interpretation and your inspiration. But let me see here. So,
But it's cool that everybody can have their own unique interpretation of it, and I think that's why I was, I went with for that second verse of being at the party and the kids in the red cup, because people remember that. Everybody has that memory of being at that party and all the feelings that came along with it, whether it was just like you're having the time of your life or just going through a breakup. People can remember that scene and then also just reflect on their own emotions and their own personal memories of being in that particular scene, which is
right.
cool. I don't know if that's too deep or whatever, but
Oh no, I love going deep, man. That's
I thought it was cool. So, and I like, stories like that of just kind of like, let's stay out. Let's enjoy this while it lasts.
Yeah, stories and songwriting is it's my bag. I mean, I'm a huge Bob Dylan fan, for example. He
Yeah.
loves to put just these little stories in all of his songs, and I find it
Right.
fascinating and almost magical how you can kind of put your own little narrative in a song, and basically, once you put it in a song, it's just like it's frozen in amber, I guess you'd say,
Right.
like, and you can just kind of have that unchangeable moment that's just going to live on, which I find fascinating. So,
Some people are just great storytellers with their songs and their lyrics. And
yeah,
that's something, I don't even consider myself anywhere near that level, but it's like I'm a little envious of those that can just really paint a picture so clearly. It's so vivid, and it's just like, even though it's their story, you feel like it's your story. And to me, that's just, I don't know how they do it, but some people can pull it off, and it's just great. That's when the real magic happens, I think.
yeah, absolutely. So obviously, you write these wonderful songs, these wonderful stories. Now, some of the stuff that you write, I'm sure, are probably going to be a little quicker than others. I know you've been working
Mhm.
on that album just from hearing other stories, maybe even with Andy, about how the actual writing process went and building the album from. I guess you did some remastering work and a lot of the
Yeah.
songs kind of got rolled up into the album eventually.
Yeah, the album was, it started out as an idea of just making kind of like a collection of the songs over the years. And then of course adding some new material in there too. So yeah, it was going back and just remastering a lot of those old tracks.
Some of the songs had to have been easier to write than others. Do you have any experiences with any songs that, let's say, for example, it just took forever to write, and then maybe something with a song that, like, I don't know, you wrote it in a half hour? what,
I
what would
you
be
know,
like
I
the longest song that you've written versus like the shortest
I've
song?
Wow, it's crazy because I mean, I've literally held on to songs for years. Kind of like "Let's Stay Out" was actually, I mean, that was a song from, gosh, it must have been, probably like 2 or 3 years before it made it to the record. I mean, it wasn't fully finished and polished, but I mean, it was pretty much there. So it's like, yeah, some songs, I feel like all of them take forever to write for some reason. But I get stuck a lot, so I like to have maybe 3 or 4 songs that I'm working on at a time, just so I can kind of bounce between them. If I hit a little roadblock here, just move on to the next one. Because if I sit there and say I'm not leaving this desk until I finish this lyric, I would get absolutely nothing done.
Right.
So, so it's kind of hard to tell how long a song could take me. But usually I can write maybe like the main melody or the main lyrical hook, and I'm just like, oh, that sounds good. I'll sit on that for a while and then, just let it,
Let it
think
simmer.
about, yeah, exactly. Let it simmer for a bit, see what it actually means. Do I want to go this route with it or this route? And so I kind of just let it be for the time being and just go on to the next song and just kind of work on that.
That's
So.
interesting.
Yeah, but it is a long process.
Do you remember your quickest song that you've ever written, or is it just like none?
Um, Instrumental, maybe, something within, had it kind of all planned out and structured within a few hours.
That makes
But
sense.
yeah, and then go back and mix it later.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, lyrically, I don't know. This latest song, Something Real, I felt like that came a little bit quicker than others,
Hmm.
but I'm not really sure how long I spent on that. Maybe a couple weeks.
Very good. So I'm going to dig into a few more here of the songs that just really kind of found interesting. And for as much as the next song, I wrote one thing down on my note sheet, and the song that you wrote is Golden Age. So
Mhm.
I love the song.
Cool, thank you.
I wrote taking off on a plane, and that's all I wrote. So, what was some of the inspirations behind writing that song? I'm
Oh.
sure it was a little bit more than taking off on the plane.
Well, no plane involved actually.
Oh, interesting.
I guess if it had to be about something, maybe about reflection. Years ago, I had a buddy who lived in downtown LA, and he lived in this, loft downtown. And I remember one night going up to the roof, which was off limits, but I don't know why or how. But I went up onto the roof, and it overlooked downtown LA.
Oh, wow.
And it was nighttime, and it's just kind of like it was just something that I always remembered. I don't know if it just that moment in time for me, where I was, what I was doing, but I just remember being out there and and just kind of taking that time to reflect.
I
How did
actually
I
did
get
the
here?
same thing
Why?
before.
What's that?
When I was younger, I guess I was about 17. I don't know why, but I started climbing out of my house, like my bedroom window.
Right.
And I have this little roof like right next to me. And I used to actually go out and just lay on this roof and just look at the stars and, maybe bring my Sony Walkman out and just kind of jam out.
Right.
And,
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly. I don't know why I remember this one moment, but I do for some reason. So going on with with that whole scene, I remember later on my buddy taking us down to a speakeasy, which I'd never been. I'm like, wait, they still have speakeasies? I was like, yeah. Let's go
what year is
downtown.
it?
And yeah, and so I remember going. It was just I found it odd that for some reason I remember this night, and so I just decided to write about it. So, so the first verse is talking about me being on that roof, and then the second verse, I don't know which verse, but then I wrote a verse about being at the speakeasy, and it was just kind of for some reason the whole night just kind of felt a little just as reflective a word. I just felt like I was kind of like
Yeah.
it felt like it felt like a journey, like I'm here. It's like
It felt like
this is
something
cool,
memorable that
right?
you weren't going to forget. And it's, I know exactly what you were saying. There's just something about an evening or a moment that you can't really place your finger on it. And I had
Right.
everybody has those moments, and that makes complete sense when you really think about it. And I'm probably going to guess a lot of your songs seem to be that way. Like I was at Woodstock 94, and
Mhm.
that was a blast. And I remember it was 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was walking back from, I didn't even know, it was some techno band that was playing at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And it turned out to be a band called Orbital. I don't know if you ever heard of
Oh
Orbital.
yeah, Orbital.
I didn't even know who it was, but I just heard, it was all this techno stuff. And I'm like walking
Yeah,
back, and the sun was coming up. And I was just like, just having this moment. I'm like,
exactly. Yeah.
it was almost like a red cup situation where, I just saw the sun. I'm like, this is one of the moments where I'm never going to forget. And, you just kind of want to hold on to those times. And it's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's strange because it could be just a total non-event,
Right.
but for some reason it sticks out. So I think it's just culmination of everything of just, where we are at that particular moment in time and what's going on in our lives. It's strange. And so I'm find myself fascinated with those moments, and the song Golden Age isn't really trying to explain it. It was just kind of more of just acknowledging it. And then using that, I guess, is kind of like a way of reflecting. So, the song kind of just goes into describing those moments and then kind of reflecting on everything.
Very synthwavy of you.
Goes with the whole nostalgia theme, and which I think is kind of like the core essence of the whole genre.
Right.
So just nostalgia, it's just that's why I'm so attached to it. It's
Yeah.
great.
You pull back those moments that just stay locked in your brain,
Yeah.
and you reflect on them. And,
Yeah.
that's just that part of what makes us human is just having those experiences.
On the roof, high above, the streets still move. Am I high enough? Watch them go. Watch them go. The city lights, a faded glow. Simple truths, honest love. Now the tables turn,
Those days are gone. Watch them go. Watch them go. Rather live without. Be alone. Leave my name at the door. Everybody wants something more. Watch them go. Watch them go. The perfect song. Save the soul. On the roof, high above, the streets still move. Am I high enough? Watch them go. Watch them go. Yeah, the city lights, a faded glow. Tell the stories of a golden age. Hide away from all the times I've changed. Never stop, and I'm afraid to know. Holding on to all the things I've grown. Tell the stories of a golden age. Hide away from all the times I've changed. Never stop, and I'm afraid to know. Holding on to all the things I've grown. Tell the stories of the golden age. Hide away from all the times I've changed. Never stop, and I'm afraid to know. Holding on to all the things I've grown.
I'm gonna give you one more here, and
Okay.
this one might be my absolute favorite song. Not only hearing you play it live, but also just playing it on my record and my vinyl. Because
Cool.
I'm.
How's it sound on vinyl?
It sounds great on
Okay,
vinyl.
cool. Awesome.
And I tell you what, with the clear vinyl, I was a little worried because with clear vinyl or any colored vinyl, you get a little bit of easier degradation of the vinyl.
Yeah, I've heard that exact thing.
Like picture discs,
Oh yeah,
they're
picture discs,
beautiful, but
yeah, they don't last very long.
you play them twice and it's like,
Yeah.
forget it. But it sounds great. In fact, I was just playing it a little earlier, but the lyrics, again, back to those 3 o'clock in the morning, out with your friends, you just want to get drunk and just shout, this is love, out the car window. And, I really get a lot of enjoyment about that song. And it seems like you kind of were going with some inspiration as well when you wrote that one. But I'd love to hear what your take on that one is. That's just
I don't want to
personal.
ruin it for you.
But I already have you're not going to change my mind, but
All right, good. It's as long as I don't kill it for anybody. But
I originally thought it was like a streetwalker, like almost like
no, yeah, not quite.
but then it turned into like somebody looking for love. Obviously they're going through a lot of one night stands and having having those times that we all go through, when you're more or less just using your body, just get through things, and instead of trying to connect with people. But I don't know. I'm interested.
I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, going back to past relationships and people I've met and people I've known.
Is this a personal experience, or is it just kind of a vibey kind of thing?
It's personal in a generalized term. The song's about someone who, maybe pretends to be something they're not and kind of mistakes certain things for love. Just, it could be any number of reasons, but there's a void and they're trying to fill it, and they're kind of just nothing devious, just not really sure, a little scared, and kind of, more of like, I'll take what I can get.
Right.
Because this is probably the best that it's going to be for me. And so I don't want to say it's about a specific person. So it's just more of a generalized idea of a situation or a person, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting to hear you describe it. And
yeah, I guess I'll be honest. I mean, I've written a few different songs in that same vein, just about people kind of like put on a disguise, and are a little afraid to show who they are underneath because they're afraid of being a little vulnerable.
Right.
There's a lot of vulnerability, and sometimes that's too much for certain people to handle. If you listen to the song I Know, it's pretty much the same idea, about just someone who's afraid of being vulnerable.
Right.
And I think that's kind of just like the whole theme I was going with those songs.
choosers, better you than me.
Yeah, it's tough sometimes, to put yourself out there. It's better just to kind of hide behind some facade and everything like that. But it's interesting. You get the most out of people when you meet them and you discover the real person behind them. I think the genuineness of people. And it's tough, though, for people to break down those walls and to really connect with people past the facade.
Yeah, but I feel the same way. I much more prefer to see someone flawed and genuine rather than pretending to be something they're not.
Right.
So it's like I write that in the song I know, it's kind of like she's broken hearted and stuff like that, but I prefer to see her that way because of course she's sad, but she's being true to herself and she's being real and she's being vulnerable, and those are all characters that no one should ever be ashamed of.
Right.
So that's great.
Well, cool. Very good. All right. So I'm done picking your brain for a little bit about some specific inspirations, but let's talk about touring. I know you've been doing some touring. You do have a show coming up in September, right? Is that the closest show that you have?
Well, I'm playing on the 16th. I'm doing a show in LA.
Okay.
And so doing the 16th, but then I am going up north to San Francisco and Portland at the end of September.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it'd be really. I've been looking forward to playing up north. Unfortunately, I couldn't make Seattle, but that's kind of been on my bucket list, like San Francisco, Portland, Seattle.
Man, it's a hopping scene, but you know what?
Right.
It's over there. When you coming back to the East Coast?
I want to play as much as possible. Like for me, the end game is being on stage and performing.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal, is to be on stage. So I love the idea of touring. I love the idea of traveling, playing shows.
Yeah, it seems like you're really into the actual live aspect of it. When you're touring, when you're doing shows, do you have any like particular memorable shows that stand out? Do you have like any favorite venues or experiences that you've kind of come across that you kind of remember?
Well, Neon, obviously, but I think my most memorable is like when I was 18. I actually had my 19th birthday. I toured Europe for about a month and a half. Yeah, and this was an old band back in those days, quote unquote. I played in a ska band.
Oh, nice.
Most people are going to be like, oh, rolling their eyes, but I loved it.
Ska was great.
I got a chance to play all over the place and tour and do amazing shows, meet amazing people. It's that scene was it kind of reminds me of like the synthwave scene.
Yeah.
In the sense that it was a community. It felt, going to the shows and just knowing everybody there, it's just like you felt at home, and it felt great. It was really great to actually take that far enough to where I could tour. And I toured Europe with this band. These were old school guys called Hepcat. I don't know if you're familiar with.
Yeah, you know what? I know Hepcat. I can't think of what they do, but
they've been around for years.
Yeah.
And so back then we toured Europe, and I think just that entire experience was just amazing because I was fresh out of high school. I didn't have a care in the world.
Right.
And here I am halfway across the world playing music. And I had plenty of moments where I'm like, how did I get here? I mean, it's just like, this is crazy, playing cities like London and Paris, and, played Milan. I mean, you name it. We played everywhere.
Wow.
Vienna. Every city, every country was just a whole new experience. And it was just amazing. And spending that time with my closest friends, who were my bandmates. And then, getting to watch these guys who've been doing it for years, the guys in Hepcat who are just, were just amazing at what they did, was just phenomenal. And interesting side story, but I finished the tour in London, and this was like 21 years ago, man. That'll show you how old I am.
I feel you, buddy.
21 years ago, and I got to end the tour in London at this place called Camden Underground.
Okay.
And I remember leaving that venue and getting in the van that night, and I said, you know what? One day I'm going to come back to this venue, and I'm going to play this venue, and it's going to be me and my music, And I made that promise to myself, and here I am 21 years later trying to fulfill that. But, because back then I was just a guitar player. I didn't sing. I didn't write. I was, more or less, I was a band member, but I was more or less a hired gun. It's like I couldn't take credit for anything that happened with that group. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna I'm gonna do that one day. I'm gonna come back to this venue and I'm gonna play it, and it's gonna be my music. And so yeah. So anyway, that's that.
There you
That's
go.
that story.
So I'll call Stu tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, I've actually, I reached out to Stu a couple times. Yeah, he's a cool guy.
He's amazing. He's been doing some really good shows, and they just did Toronto, and oh
Amazing.
yeah,
And I'm hoping, keep fingers crossed, that they do L.A.
oh that would be
I would
great.
absolutely love that.
Yeah, I know.
But
Nightwave was just in L.A. They're
yeah,
out of New York,
yeah,
and
San Junipero. Yeah,
yeah.
actually, I was there, and I got to meet Jackson for the first
Did you
time.
play that one?
No, I didn't play. I just went.
Oh, you went. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
I just went and hung out, but it was great. So
Yeah,
I
I know.
didn't get to meet Josh or Samuel.
Faith in the Glitch.
Yeah,
Sammy's amazing. I love him.
I mean, the coolest dude. I mean, we're friends on Facebook and
Yeah.
Twitter, so it's like, so I just didn't get a chance. But they were all busy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I met him up in New York when we did the Nightwave thing with Alex and Tokyo Rose, and I wasn't planning on meeting him because I knew he was a really busy guy, and it
Yeah, for
just turned
sure.
out that I was in the green room and he just came down and he was just talking away, and then we just got talking, and yeah, he's just a character, man. He just 100% himself, and they don't really put on a front. They are who they are, and they're characters, but they're also just 100% true to themselves. And that's the type of people that I really kind of gravitate to. I don't really go
Same
for
here.
fake people, because who's got time? I can only be who I am, and
Exactly.
passionate
You
about
can't worry
what I
about
do.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, but and I think it's great. This whole community is just, in my opinion, is just filled with genuine, down to earth people.
Right.
I think it's great. It's just like everybody, who I'm friends with online, and I get to go to a show, or and get to meet these people face to face. It's
Right.
great.
And meet the artist, and find
Yeah.
out that they're real people too. That's the thing that I love about it as well.
Yeah.
Because you can't do that if you're following Metallica. Like, yeah, come on out, let's chat, Metallica.
Yeah, let's hang out.
They're like, who are you?
Right. Yeah.
But that's awesome. So I know you have a new single that just got debuted, I believe, on Valingo, right?
Yeah. Valingo premiered it. What day was that? The second or the first?
Yeah.
Thursday or Friday? I think it was Friday. I don't know. Aaron's been a huge support, so I feel fortunate that he enjoyed the song, and he, was willing to, post it up on the site. So it was cool.
Yeah, it's a great song. So it's called
Thank
Something
you.
Real.
Right.
And the interesting thing about it, I'm not going to talk about the song. I'm not going to pick your brain for every song. In fact, I think you're kind of right. It's also good to let people kind of form their own opinion about different songs and stuff like that. But one thing I do want to kind of zone in on, which I thought was kind of interesting, the cover art I thought was kind of very interesting of your selection of aesthetic. It's just a blank page of graph paper. So maybe that might even lead into the context of the song, but maybe I'm tricking you into giving me another interpretation. But
No,
what's the deal?
I'm no graphic designer, so I don't claim to be, but I am a fan of just minimalism. I mean,
Yeah.
I love clean lines, symmetry, things like that, light colors, and that's just kind of what I've always gravitated toward. And maybe a little bit of my limitations at graphic design are coming through in that, I mean, maybe I could have gone a little bit more into detail
No,
if I
no.
had actually known what I was doing. But no, I just,
I'm
you know,
totally not saying it in a
it
bad
looked
way. I was more
it looked
intrigued by it.
it looked clean and simple, and I kind of like that. I like
Yeah.
that idea, and I think it went well. So I think back in 2015, I released an EP called Lines.
Oh, cool.
And like I said, I like lines and symmetry. So and that was actually designed by Ryan from Arcade High.
No
um
kidding.
yeah, I was kind of like, hey man, I'm not really a graphic designer. He's like, well, I dabble, let me do it. And I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, well, what's the EP called? And I was like, Lines. And He's like, say no more.
I
And
got you.
it was literally, I mean, it was like a sheet of lined paper, with the logo on it. I'm like, this is great. It's simple, and maybe it was just kind of a callback to that,
Oh, cool.
just kind of like that simplicity, and instead of lines, it's grids now,
You
So,
know, you played that all wrong though. You should have been like,
all
I
right.
had this deep idea. Like, listen. I was
I
going
mean,
for
I could do that. I could do that.
But no, you're
I,
being genuine, and that's what I
it's
love
gonna
about
sound
it.
like I'm trying too hard. I can't really. I'm not good at faking that.
You
So
could have spouted out all this bullshit, and then they're like, no, it was nice and clean and
it worked. Yeah. And
simple
for the
idea.
next single, it's gonna be the same design but a different gradient color.
Get out of here.
Hey, it's gonna blow everybody's mind. Wait, just wait.
Mind has been blown.
It goes with the music. To me, it just kind of fit. And like my lyrics, I'll sit there and I will obsess over graphic design. So it's like sometimes you just gotta let it go. Like, hey, that looks good. Don't touch it. Let's move on.
Yeah.
And so I should focus my efforts on other aspects.
Yeah, well, some people they go a little overboard with art, and art is great, but you know what? You put your art into your music, which is where it should go. Graphic art is great, and if you can get great graphic art too,
If you can afford it, man, it's great.
I'm telling you.
You can have some killer artwork, but sometimes you just you just need something to get you by.
There you go. Alan
But
Oakes,
it's
he
cool.
just gets
I'm
by.
I'm glad you enjoyed it enough to bring it up, and
Yeah,
and,
it was
and here I go
cool.
again, just killing it for you. You know,
You're killing my dreams here.
and then when you ask about where the name Let 'Em Riot comes from, I'm gonna kill it for you again.
Oh,
Like,
I totally I went off script on that, and I didn't even get to that question. So, all right, here we go.
oh no,
I'm lobbing up the baseball here. Where did the name Let 'Em Riot come from?
people have probably heard me say where the name come from, but it was just something I heard in a movie,
Okay,
and I thought it sounded good.
nice.
It's a movie called High Fidelity. I don't know if you. It's
Oh,
from,
that
but I think like 2001.
that had somebody in it. Hot
John
girl.
Cusack. Well, yeah, I had a few hot
Winona
girls.
Ryder?
No,
No.
Catherine Zeta-Jones was in it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was a John Cusack film, and I'm just a fan of. I mean, obviously going back to the '80s stuff, like John Cusack movies. And to me, High Fidelity was just like the greatest because it mixes music and relationships, which I mean,
It's like
that's
peanut butter and
my
jelly.
yeah, right. It just you
Can't have
can't
one
go
without
wrong with
the
that. And
other.
Jack Black's in it, and it's just a fucking amazing movie. I love it. And a little side note, one of the guys who has a small part is actually one of the singers from Hepcat.
No
He had a
kidding.
small stint as an actor, and he was in High Fidelity. And I'm just like, I know that.
I know that
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
I toured with him.
Well, he didn't. Unfortunately, he didn't make that tour. They
Oh,
were just
gotcha.
one singer instead of two because he was off making movies. But I felt connected. I'm just like I still felt connected to him. But yeah, so that movie's just great.
Well, that's a
I
boring
highly
answer.
recommend anybody.
I'm just kidding.
What's that?
I said that's a boring answer. I'm just playing with you.
But yeah, so Jack Black's character says it towards the end of the movie, and it was kind of in the context of when he's talking about his band, he's just like, let him riot. Like if so and so doesn't get it, I don't care. This is what we're doing this, and so I just kind of like that idea of just like fuck it, let him riot.
Well, that's actually
And
cool though. I like that.
yeah, I mean it's people think let them riot. It was kind of like some angst shit, right? And I'm like, no, it's chill. It's just kind of like, hey, do what you do, and people get it, great. If they don't, that's fine too.
Well, you know what? I like that answer a lot. That's
Cool.
actually better than
Awesome.
what I was thinking of. But yeah, it says a lot about the type of person you are and the type of music that you do. You put your stuff out there and it's like, hey, you're going to like it. If you don't, hey, that's cool too. Like do your thing, and just be genuine.
It's a good mentality to have when you're doing anything. It's just, you hope people like it, but you can't really let that determine where you go in life.
Right.
You know.
You have to
So,
guide your own sailboat, so to
right,
speak.
right. Yeah.
All right. So one more thing here. We did talk
Sure.
about your touring. I know you just had the single released. Are you
Yeah.
working up for an EP, for an album? Like, what's the next big thing that you're kind of cracking at right now? Maybe in like the next 6 months or so.
I'm working on, like I said, another single, a
Nice.
follow-up to this one, but the main goal is finishing the album. And so, fortunately, it's a very slow process for me.
Yeah.
Because, the last record came out in early last year. So it's been like a year and a half since I released anything. So, which was one of the reasons why I thought, maybe releasing a couple singles, what everybody's appetite for,
Yeah. It
a new
worked.
record, kind of buy me some time, to finish. But yeah, I'm currently working on the album. I'm about, 3/4 of the way through.
Oh, that's pretty
Hopefully,
good.
if all goes well, I should be done. I mean, I don't want to make any promises, but by the end of the year,
Nice. You're gonna lay it down on that sweet clear vinyl again, right?
right? I gotta make sure I get it in just in time for all those best of 2019 blog posts to come out.
Ah, yes, we have a few of those.
I'm kidding. No. Holidays are hectic. I mean, it's like family, all that stuff. So it'll most likely be early next year.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's there.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we cannot wait to hear more stuff from you. And of course, in the meantime, we have something to wet our whistle with the new single, Something Real. So, again, I do thank you for taking the time to talk with me. I'm really, really excited to hear the next thing that you got coming out too, the next single. And, I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me, man. This is great.
Yeah.
So,
Feel free to come back anytime.
for sure. Just let me know. I'll be there.
All right. You got it. Well, thanks again. And we'll be listening.